Every day we live our lives with a familiar routine. Every day has a beginning and an end. Each morning we awake hopeful that today will be different to yesterday. And so we go out and we chase. We chase our dreams and our goals. We work hard and amass wealth. We seek pleasure and happiness in the things that we do. But have you ever noticed? We pursue riches and glory, but it never feels enough. We work hard and long, but our goals still feel out of reach. We long for comfort and pleasure, but are met with suffering and strain at every turn. Have you ever felt like the things that we do, they're all meaningless? They're all as futile as chasing after the wind. In a world so broken, could there be any hope at all?
Good morning, ACC. How are we doing this morning? Great to see you all this morning. If you're a guest here, welcome, special welcome from myself. If you don't know me yet, I'm Pastor Mike. I'm the student pastor and the worship and creative arts pastor here at Arundel Christian Church. I'm super excited that you're with us as we start a new series. We're starting our Meaningless series. You may say, meaningless? Like, what's going on with this church? Everything's meaningless? But we're actually doing a study in the book of Ecclesiastes. So if you have a Bible, please go ahead and open that up. And if you do not have a Bible, in the seat in front of you, underneath it, you can go ahead and grab, there's a Bible there. If you don't have one, please put your name in it, take it home. That's our gift for you. We want you guys to have a Bible as you leave this place and want you to have something where you can open up God's Word freely. So Ecclesiastes is where we're at today, and as we start this series called Meaningless, today, here's the goal. I'm just going to be right up front with what the goal is. The goal is to have a 10,000-foot view approach of the book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to be taking an overview of the entire book and understanding the historical context, understanding what's happening within the book so that we can understand where we're about to go as a church for the next 3 weeks. Does that make sense? So 3 weeks after this, Pastor Matt and Pastor John are going to be delving into some of these concepts that we're going to talk about today. And today it's just understanding where the book is going, why it's going there, and sort of getting that direction set in our minds of where we're about to go together. Does that make sense? So that's what we're doing today. I would love to delve into all of this, but I'm not going to steal from Pastor Matt and Pastor John, and I frankly don't have the time. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. But before we get into the Word, the first thing we have to look at is this text. And we have to ask ourselves, I don't know about you, but Ecclesiastes, you're probably like, that sounds like Christianese to me. Like, what's Ecclesiastes? Like, it is such a weird word. It actually is it's a Greek word that comes from the Greek root word ekklesia, which means assembly or gathering of. And some of you might be like, I've heard ekklesia before, because we've talked about it before here. Ekklesia is the word that's translated in Greek as the church. All right, the church is the assembly or gathering of believers. That is the ekklesia. So this word comes from that root word, to assemble, the assembly or gathering of people. That's Ecclesiastes. That's what it literally means, the assembly or gathering of people. And that's the root of it. However, Ecclesiastes is Greek. We're in the Old Testament. This was written in Hebrew. So it's like, why are we using the Greek word, right? Why aren't we using the Hebrew word? Now, the Hebrew word is kohelet. Kohelet comes from the root word in Hebrew that means kohel, which literally means the one who assembles, usually referring to either people or wisdom or knowledge. And so the question that many scholars argue over or question is, what is this book about? Is this the assembly of people, or is this the assembly of knowledge? Which is it? And I make the argument it's both. This is the assembly of people gathering with the assembly of knowledge to be disseminated to them of the wisdom that is being given in this book. And that's the beauty of Ecclesiastes. It's basically hey, let's all gather together and let's hear the gathering of wisdom. Let's go ahead and learn together. And so that's the basic understanding of the title and where it comes from. You might hear me say Kohelet. It's the same thing. Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, same thing. But I like to use the Hebrew term because it is a Hebrew text. But the voices in the book, this is very important because I think sometimes we can miss this. There's actually two voices in this book. There's the author and there's the teacher, okay? There's two voices in this book. The author speaks and writes in chapter 1, verse 1, and then chapter 12, verses 9 to 14, and then quotes the teacher for the rest of it. So the teacher is the primary voice, and the author is presenting that voice to the audience and then giving a little bit of a conclusion at the end. And that's important to understand because we have to know who the teacher is, okay? And in order to understand the teacher, we have to realize that this is King Solomon. King Solomon is Kohelet, the teacher. And he is the one who is the primary voice that the author is trying to convey. He's saying, look, this is the wisest man who ever lived, a wise king of Israel. Let me give you some of his wisdom, but I'm also going to give you a little bit of a conclusion at the end to sort of like guide us in the right direction at the end, because this is a very deep book. If you've never read the book of Ecclesiastes or Kohelet before, it is a deep book that you can get very lost in the sauce very quickly. And you're going to see that today as we go into it. But this is King Solomon's wisdom. And the reason why I think this is important and we need to take a quick detour to Deuteronomy is because Solomon was a king of Israel, and we see this in Scripture. He was the wisest king who ever lived. God blessed him with wealth, with horses, with wives. He blessed the land of Israel, and yet, you would think with that much wealth, with that much wisdom, with that big of a kingdom, you'd expect that kingdom to last quite long, and yet when he dies, it fractures, it divides, and it falls apart. And you got to go, why? Why did this happen? The answer is found in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 16. Let's go there together. Deuteronomy chapter 17, starting in verse 16, says this. This is God's guidelines for a king. He says, the king must not build up a large stable of horses for himself or send his people to Egypt to buy horses. For the Lord has told you, you must never return to Egypt. The king must not take many wives for himself because they will turn his heart away from the Lord. And he must not accumulate large amounts of wealth in silver and gold for himself. So what we see here is God's giving this instruction for kings, and it's basically don't multiply horses, don't multiply wives, don't multiply wealth. And you could sit there and go, well, I don't understand. Like, if you're a nation, shouldn't you multiply your horses, your armies? If you're a nation, shouldn't you multiply your wealth? Shouldn't you? Well, the wives thing, that's where we get a little like, what's going on here, right? But I have something to tell you because I think this is the problem is we tend to read this from our perspective now as Westerners. This is an Eastern text written over 2,000 years ago, and it is old. It's ancient. And it doesn't mean that, okay, God was fine with that then. No, that's not what it's saying. Because wives were different. Everything that's happening here is different in a sense. And we're gonna delve into that. What is the difference? What is actually being said? Because it's not that multiplying horses is wrong. It's the result of that. Why you're really doing it is the problem. And what we're gonna find throughout all of these is that there is a search for protection and provision. And that's the issue. So let's look at King Solomon's failure. The first one, he multiplied horses. This is talking about his armies, multiplying his armies. And you think as a king, you should multiply armies. Well, what does that give you? For protection, it helps you, that large armies help you defend yourself, right? If you have a large army, you're able to defend your country, you're able to defend your people, and therefore, it's great protection to have a lot of armies, a lot of horses. Provision, what can you use those armies to do? You can use those armies to conquer other lands, gain their resources, gain their fealty, gain other people into your nation, right? It's this understanding of protection and provision is what these horses give King Solomon. And he did this, even though God said do not. And we'll talk about that in a second. The next one, this is the fun one. Wives. Men. One's enough, all right? I love my wife to death. All right, that's not a dig. That's like one is enough. You don't need more than one. All right, and wives, one husband's enough, right? Am I right? Right? They'll say the same thing. One is enough. This isn't, and you might be saying, so what's going on with Solomon? He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And you go, what? Like, what's up with this guy? Does he have like an overactive libido? Like, what's going on with him? Like what's going? No. And here's what I'm gonna tell you. This has nothing to do with lust at all. I promise you. This is again about protection and provision. Because remember, this is the instruction for kings. All right. This is the instruction for kings. Why? Because kings, when they marry, they secure alliances. This is protection. I secure an alliance. Now they're no longer going to fight us. We're no longer going to fight them. If we get into a battle, they'll come and support us. If they get in a battle, we'll go and support them. That's what the marriage was for kings. It was you gain a wife in order to secure an alliance with another nation. All right? It was protection. Also, it was provision to secure trade with other nations. Now that we are in this relationship, in this alliance, I can now trade with you. We can have open trade. We can help each other financially. This is the understanding of what wives were being used for back then. It's completely different. It's not a lust issue. This was about protection and provision. Now, it's still sinful. God made that very clear. Yet he did it because he was trying to secure protection and provision. But this is how it was back then. And then finally, multiply wealth. Protection, because the more money you have, the more you can pay tribute to other kings that might be a threat. And say, hey, instead of attacking me, how about this? I give you this, right? Like, I give you a little bit more than what someone else will give you for this, and we have this little trade thing going on. Or I pay tribute and give you some lands or give you a taxation or something so that we can sort of live harmoniously and not get into some conflict, all right? Secondly, obviously, provision. I mean, this one goes without saying, yeah, money to buy things, right? Like, the more wealth you have, the more money you have to buy things, and that can provide for you in many ways. And so the issue here is that Solomon was trying to secure protection and provision through human means instead of relying on God. Look what it says in Genesis chapter 15, verse 1. This is when God is making a covenant with Abram, and he meets Abram in a vision, and this is what he says to him. He says, do not be afraid, Abram. I will protect you, and your reward will be great. In the NIV and in the original Hebrew, the understanding is, I am your shield, your great reward. I am your shield, your protector, and I am your great reward, your provider. This is what God is saying. I will protect and provide for you. And therefore, in Deuteronomy, hey, kings, don't try to secure your own protection and provision. I'll do that. Trust in me. God's trying to set up a theocracy. Follow him, not the ways of the world. And this is where Solomon fails. He tries to secure protection and provision through human means, and it falls apart at the end of his reign. And this is literally the backdrop of Ecclesiastes. Solomon, the one who's writing this, is literally near the end of his life, and he's seeing all of this coming to an end. And he's like, look at all this stuff I did, and yet it's falling apart. But before we jump into Ecclesiastes, we've got one more thing. Promise, we're getting there. We have to understand that Ecclesiastes is part of what's called the wisdom literature. Now, there are multiple books in the wisdom literature, but we're going to focus on 3 of those today. The first one I want you to focus on is Proverbs, and you can write that down in the blank on your sheet. Proverbs. Proverbs basically says, life usually works if you live wisely, right? If you do this, this is what will happen. If you don't do this, this is what will happen. So Proverbs is saying, why don't you do the right thing? Why don't you live wisely and therefore have the good things happen to you in your life, right? It's this understanding of wisdom and saying, hey, like, you know, if you really don't want to burn yourself, maybe don't touch the stove, right? It doesn't actually say that in Proverbs, but that's Pastor Mike's proverb to you, all right? So, but that's Proverbs, all right? But then you have this other book in the wisdom literature called Job. Even if you live wisely, suffering still comes. That's Job. It doesn't matter. Like, you could literally live exactly as Proverbs has laid out for you to live, and everything could go, and you go, what? I thought I did this right. And that's Job. Job's like, it doesn't matter. Like, it could still be really bad. Suffering will still come. Which leads us to Ecclesiastes. And this is where we have to be careful. And this is why the author sort of like brings these teachings to us and gives us a conclusion at the end, because basically what Ecclesiastes is saying is life is fleeting, random, and uncontrollable. And you go, well, that sounds hopeless. Sounds great. Like, this is going to be a great book, right? But this is literally what the author and what Solomon is trying to tell you, is that life is fleeting. It's random. It's uncontrollable. But there's still hope in it if you know where to look. And that's the key. And that's the purpose of this book. So the message of Kohelet is very simple. It's one word. And that word we can find in Ecclesiastes 1, verse 2, that says this: everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. Now all of us probably go, well, have a great day, guys. Everything's meaningless. Have fun. I should not leave you there, and I won't leave you there. Because that's exactly what the author doesn't want to happen. He doesn't want Solomon's teaching of that to lead you down the wrong path, right? He's saying, look, he's right. Everything is meaningless in the sense that the word meaningless doesn't literally mean without meaning. The word here is havel, all right? Havel, and this is the Hebrew word up here, havel. Havel, literally taken, means merest breath. You might say, that makes no sense, all right? Let me explain. We're about to enter into the fall, and it's going to get colder outside, and when we enter into the winter, it gets really cold, and when you walk outside in the morning and you take an exhale, what happens? You see your breath. This is merest breath. It's there and gone. That's the idea. Havel. Everything is havel. Everything is whew. Now, it doesn't sound any better, but that's the idea. And I want you to understand that, because this is really the point that the teacher, Solomon, is trying to get to us, is like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, we try to find hope and meaning in so many things in this world, but the reality is it's just merest breath. Let me give you some examples that he gives. Let's look at Ecclesiastes 1, verse 18. He says this. He says, the greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. The actual wording there in Hebrew is, with great knowledge comes great pain. With great knowledge comes great pain. That's your next blank. Wow, seeking knowledge only brings pain. It's something that's difficult, because we sit and go, what do you mean pain? And you know, it's what he's trying to get you to understand is the more you know, the more you realize, one, you don't know anything. That's the first thing. Secondly, the more you know, the more you realize you have absolutely no control. That's what the teacher's trying to teach you. That's what Solomon's trying to say. The more you understand, the more wisdom you gain, the more you realize you have no control over anything. And that brings pain, that brings sorrow, that brings this idea of havel, merest breath. And he even goes further in chapter 2, verse 26 to say this. He says, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. He's like chasing the wind. Have you ever tried to yell like, oh, I'm going to catch you, wind? Right? No, you can't catch the wind, just like you can't capture your breath. It's there and then it's gone. It's uncontrollable. It's fleeting. It's random. And this is the understanding. It's like, look, everything's temporary. It's like hurting the wind. And we have to realize that. The church is very important. The author and the teacher are trying to get you to understand that everything is temporary. And when things are temporary, it's like you're trying to herd the wind when you try to make that your meaning and your purpose. And this is the problem. He then goes on to say in chapter 1, verses 3 to 11, this understanding that time is unstoppable, right? Time is unstoppable. It doesn't matter what you do, time does not wait for you. It keeps going. And many of us go here and go, yep, I do not know where the last 25 years went. Like, it's gone, right? Or you have that little child that you just was born, and all of a sudden they're going off to college. And you're like, what happened, right? Or they're going off to ACC students. Whoop. All right, so I'm the student pastor. Anyway, so It's one of those things where it's like, wow, time just does not stop. Which leads him to his final point, which we find in chapter 11, death is unavoidable. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're righteous, if you're evil, if you're good, if you're bad. It doesn't matter if you paid your taxes or didn't pay your taxes. Death is coming. It's unavoidable. This is a great book, right? Like, this is like, man, this is a heavy one, right? But this is the knowledge, the wisdom that's being brought, is this understanding of these themes of like, you need to understand that this is all Havel, merest breath. Because the problem is, church, and this is the points that then come from these themes, the points that Solomon now brings, that the author brings from his teaching, is this recognition that we have too many things in this life where we're finding false hope for meaning and purpose in our lives. And this is true to us today even now. False hopes for meaning. The first one is this: wealth. Wealth. Solomon talks about how we try to build wealth, and he did this. He tried to build wealth in order for protection, provision, right? We try to build this wealth, but the reality is sooner or later it runs out. Like, we try to build this wealth, and we're building it up, and we're building it up, and building it up, and all of a sudden it's gone, or it's there, and then we die. And then it's like passed on to someone else, and 9 times out of 10, that person doesn't use it the way you want it to, and probably doesn't even care, and just goes, oh, cool, I'm just going to waste it on this. And you go, no! Well, more like you're dead. But it's like, but you see what I'm saying? Like, this is the issue. Like, wealth is fleeting. Merest breath. It's here, then gone. So why are we trying to find our meaning and purpose in our wealth? A lot of us do this. If I could just, like, some of us are saying, I just don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. By the way, that's a good thing to do. Try to get there. Maybe we sit there and say, well, I just want my savings to be another 10,000 more, or another 100,000 more. Or actually, now that I have this savings, now I want to make sure that my 401k is here. I want to make sure that this is here. Oh, I want to make sure I have enough money for the stocks over here. I want to make sure I put away money for, and all of a sudden we're just chasing this wealth. For what? It's gone. Do you see? This is the wisdom. The second one that he brings up that's a false hope for meaning is your career. Right? Trying to climb the corporate ladder. Trying to get higher up on the ladder. By the way, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm saying don't make this the meaning and purpose and hope in your life. This is what he's saying. These things aren't inherently bad. It's just don't make these the meaning and hope for your life. I just need to say this because we live in a world like this right now. The younger generation, hear me right now, that doesn't mean just go and find a new job every 5 months, all right? This is not what he's teaching at all, right? But this understanding of like, I'm trying to, I'm in this position, I'm in entry level, now I want to get into a managerial position, now I want to go up to this position, now I want to get to this position, then I want to get to a board, then I want to get to, and you just keep going up, and what happens? What does your career actually bring you? It brings you stress. It doesn't bring you hope. It brings you stress. And more importantly, it also never satisfies. You're always looking for the next thing. You're always constantly going for the next rung, the next rung, the next rung. You're never like, yep, I'm good. You're like, man, I wish I could go higher. And sometimes you get to the top of your company and you go, well, I got to go to another company because I'm already at the top of this one. And now I got to get to that one. And it's like you just keep going. It never satisfies. Merest breath, Havel. Number 3, status. Status. Oh, man, if people just respected me, if people listened to me, if people wanted to hear my words. And nowadays, it's almost like the status is even turning to like online. Like, how's my online presence? How do people see me? Do I have followers? Do I have people that retweet and repost what I place? And do I have this following to a point where I'm able to monetize this 5 pennies this month, right? And there are people that actually make a living off that. But it's like we're trying to build this status and like, people just love me, just look forward to me. But the reality is, if you're honest and you think about it, status fades with time. Just think back 5 years ago when we were all in COVID and all sitting at home watching YouTube, right? That person you were listening to, are you still listening to them now? You see what I'm saying? They faded. They were there, they had status, and it's gone. This is what happens. It's fleeting. It's havel. And finally, pleasure. Maybe you're like, you know what? I'm not going to seek wealth. I'm not going to seek status. I'm not going to seek career. I'm just going to live the vacation life. I'm just going to go and I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to see all the sights. I'm just going to, I'm not going to, I'm going to have some money put away and I'm just going to go travel. I'm just going to enjoy my life. But here's the reality is no matter how much pleasure you have, no matter how much you do, the reality is Monday always comes. There is an end to the vacation. It always comes, and it comes always way too soon, right? There's always that time where the money runs out and the pleasure has to stop and the working has to come back in. And that's the reality. And this is what the teacher, Solomon, is trying to teach. He's saying, look, it's all havel, fleeting, fragile, empty. And yet these are the things that we put our hope and our meaning in. And this is the problem. Now, he does mention two specific things of true hope. And unfortunately, he then makes a 180 and goes, but it's pointless. But so true hope can be found in wisdom. He basically says wisdom matters. You may say, wait, didn't he start the whole thing by saying with great knowledge comes great pain? Like, why would he then say wisdom matters? He's saying because wisdom does actually matter, because he's going back to Proverbs and saying, you should know. You should want to know who God is. You should want to have the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding. You should seek that. That is true. As long as it's rooted in God, that's great. However, it's not enough. Point 2, fear of the Lord matters. Fear of the Lord. And you might say, well, I thought I was supposed to be God's friend. I thought that Jesus died on the cross for my sins. I thought that I can boldly approach the throne room. Why do I have to fear God? It comes all the way back to Exodus. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but this understanding of don't fear God, rather don't be terrified of him, but rather have an awe and a reverence for him. This is the understanding. Fear of the Lord is this awe and reverence of God, the obedience to the Lord. This is what it's talking about. The wisdom and obedience to the Lord matters. But then, of course, he goes on to say, yet these things don't guarantee life. Will go as you hope. And that's pretty much where he leaves it off. And you see this with Job, right? It doesn't always end the way you want it to go. So we're left with this question after reading all this, so how should we live? If the author and the teacher right now is basically saying, like, life is just havel, how am I supposed to live with a life that's mere as breath, that's meaningless? Like, what does that mean? And the point that the teacher makes, that Solomon makes, is this: accept havel. Accept it. Accept the fact that life is fleeting, that life is fragile, and that life is out of your control. Have a great week. No, I'm sure. Right? Yo, man. Pastor Matt, you need to take this guy out of the rotation. All right, so, but here's the thing, though, because it doesn't stop there. Like, if we stop there, there'd be a problem, right? Because the recognition that Solomon brings is once you recognize and accept that, you can now, point 2, recognize God's gifts in your life. You can now recognize the gifts. You can enjoy the small, simple blessings, the friendships that you have, the family that you have, the good meal that you eat, the sunny day that you happen to be out in. Because now that you've accepted the fact that it's out of your control, you start to see these little things and go, it's a great day. Look how good God is. Look at these gifts and blessings he's given me. However, you have to realize you can't control or guarantee it. This is the problem. This is the key. You can't control or guarantee, well, if I accept havel, God's then going to give me. No, it's not how it works. Because this leads to our final point. Adopt a posture of trust. And this is the real point that Solomon and the author are trying to bring to you. You have to go through this process so you can get to a point where you adopt a posture of trusting God in that which you have no control over. That's the reality. That's the true wisdom. You have to adopt a posture of trust to say, God, I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's not going the way I want it to go, but I trust. That's the wisdom. And if we're honest, we can say all we want, well, God's in control, but the reality is we want to sit there and go, hey, God, why did you do that? God, why is this happening? How many times have you heard the whole, if God really is real, then why does he let these things happen? It's because there isn't that posture of trust. You haven't accepted Havel. You haven't accepted that life truly is random, that life truly is all over the place and uncontrollable by you. And that the only one who truly has control is God, and you have to trust him in the way he's orchestrating it. When I say life is random, I don't mean life is random in the sense that God has no control. I mean life is random because you have no control over it. And from your perspective, you're like, why is this all happening? But from God's perspective, he's like, it's all running exactly as it should. But you have to trust him. And that's the difficult part. And this is when the author comes in and goes, okay, now that he's depressed you beyond belief, let me bring you back, all right? Ecclesiastes chapter 12, turn there with me. So basically, the teacher has his last words in verse 8. Everything is Havel, says the teacher. Everything completely Havel. It's all merest breath. It's all meaningless. And then the author jumps in and says this in verse 9. Keep this in mind. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. See, it's like the author sort of doing damage control. It's like, hey, what he did was right. I know what it sounds like, seems like, he jumped off the deep end. He didn't. It is wise. And here's how he quantifies it. Look at verse 11. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. Their collected sayings are like a nail-studded stick with which a shepherd drives a sheep. But my child, let me give you some further advice. This is the author. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out. So what is he saying? He's saying, look, these words that are difficult, that seem like he jumped off the deep end, they are true and they hurt, but they're like a shepherd's goad that the shepherd pokes the sheep to get it to move in the right direction. By the way, that poke isn't pleasant. It hurts. But it gets him to move in the direction that God is calling them to go. And the author's now saying, now that you're moving in the right direction and it hurts a little bit, let me go ahead and clarify the destination for you so you can see clearly where you are to go. Which leads us to chapter 12, verse 13. Let me say this before I say this because I almost forgot this. He then says to watch out because there's writings of many books. And he's saying, don't fall into the trap of just constantly seeking knowledge and wisdom and hoping that maybe that will give you some element of control. It's not going to happen. And you're never going to get it all. So stop. You can go ahead and seek wisdom, but don't make that your entire life to the point where you don't enjoy the gifts that God has given. That's what he's saying. So, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. I love how the NIV puts it. Now all has been heard, and here is the conclusion of the matter. I want to say this really quick. When he says all has been heard, he's saying all of Solomon's wisdom. This is the wisest man who ever lived. All of his wisdom, here's the conclusion. I think we should pay attention. Fear God and keep his commands, for this is the sole duty of all mankind. Wow. So let's break this down. What is this conclusion? What does it mean to fear God and keep his commands? You see, this is Old Testament. And teachers, when they taught, would teach and say things in order to bring you back to the text. Solomon and the author are trying to bring you back to Exodus. Look at what it says in Exodus chapter 19. Well, even before Exodus 19, let's go to Exodus 20. In Exodus chapter 20, we see God speak from Mount Sinai to the people of Israel. Literally speak what we call the 10 Commandments. Literally the 10 words or 10 sayings of God. And the people are terrified. Look at what it says here. It says in verse 19 of chapter 20, and they said to Moses, you speak to us and we will listen, but don't let God speak to us directly or we will die. They're terrified. Like literally, the verse before says that they saw thunder and all this stuff and they trembled with fear. Look at verse 20. Well, look at what Moses says. Don't be afraid, Moses answered them. For God has come in this way to test you, so that your fear of him will keep you from sinning. If we boil that down, what he basically said is, hey guys, don't fear God, rather fear God. A little confusing, right? But what he's really saying is, hey, don't be terrified. Be filled with fearful wonder and reverence for who God is. Because that's what it's going to keep you from sinning. And this is the key, from sinning. Because it's not just fear the Lord, it's fear God and keep his commands. Church, I don't know what has happened, but for some reason, people have completely forgotten that we are called to obey God. We're called to obey. And far too often, we lean too much of our hope on this idea of grace. And we forget that God's still a God of justice. You are called to obey. Let's look at what happened in Exodus chapter 19, because this is where he's leading them. Exodus chapter 19, verses 7 and 8 says this. So Moses returned from the mountain and called together the elders of the people and told them everything the Lord had commanded him. And all the people responded together, we will do everything the Lord has commanded. So Moses brought the people's answer back to the Lord. So there's one. We will do everything the Lord has commanded. Jump forward to Exodus chapter 24, verse 3. Look what it says here. Then Moses went down to the people and repeated all the instructions and the regulations the Lord had given him. And the people answered with one voice, we will do everything the Lord has commanded. 2. Now look at verse 4, chapter 24. Then Moses carefully wrote down all the Lord's instructions. Early the next morning, Moses got up and built an altar at the foot of the mountain. He also set up 12 pillars, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he set some of the young Israelite men to present burnt offerings and to sacrifice bulls as peace offerings to the Lord. Moses drained half the blood from these animals into basins. The other half he splattered against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it aloud to the people. Again, they all responded, we will do everything the Lord has commanded. We will obey. 3 times. We'll do everything the Lord has commanded. And ending with, we will obey. Now, Moses takes his blood and he splits it in half. Half of the blood's going to go on the horns of the altar. We'll talk about that around Christmas time. But I want to focus right now on the blood that's in the basin that he's about to do. Look at verse 8. He then took blood from the basins and splattered it over the people, declaring, look, this blood confirms the covenant the Lord has made with you in giving you these instructions. What's the covenant? This is the blood that binds them to their oath of obedience to the Lord. Church, God doesn't change. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I think there's a problem with our churches and with our world today. We saw the pendulum in churches swinging towards this legalism, which wasn't how God intended. It was too legalistic. And then all of a sudden we took it and we swung the pendulum all the way over to grace and no obedience at all. That's not God. That's not his word. God is where the justice and love meet, in the middle, where obedience and grace come together. This is why James says faith without works is dead. You're not saved by your works. but your works, rather, are expected because they are the proof of your faith. They're your faith being lived out. It should be a natural occurrence. If you truly live for God, your life should be living in obedience. That's the call. And so the author and Solomon are trying to get you to understand. Recognize that the control is not yours. The control is God's. You need to trust him and obey him. That's what you need to do if you want to see fulfillment in this life. What now? What now, God? We're all thinking it. How do I walk out of here with this? Because that's a hard message. I don't like Ecclesiastes anymore, right? Like, that's hard. It is hard. Recognize it. You need to recognize, church. I need to recognize. We all need to recognize life is merest breath. Havel. It's fleeting. It's out of our control. And recognize that our meaning and purpose in life is not found in earthly things. It's not found in wealth. It's not found in status. It's not found in career. It's not found in pleasure. It's not found in anything of this world. Rather, meaning is truly found in fearing the Lord and keeping his commands. And when you do that, you will then be able to enjoy the gifts that he gives you with gratitude. Church, stop trying to herd the wind. Start trusting in the shepherd. Start trusting in the ways that he calls you to go.